That was the terrible accusation that the prophet Nathan hurled at the king of Israel following the death of Uriah on the battlefield. David had sinned with Uriah's wife, Bathsheba. When she became pregnant, David, ever so cleverly, had contrived to cover his tracks by sending a message to her husband's commanding officer, Joab. Place Uriah in the front ranks of the attack, he told him, a place David knew would have the highest fatalities. When Joab reported that Uriah was among the fallen, David sympathized with Joab. That's war, he said. People get killed. David thought that he had covered his tracks, but God saw through the pretense. That man is you, Nathan said. You are guilty not only of adultery, but of treachery and murder as well. Centuries and centuries later, when Judas took his place in the upper room to have Passover dinner with Jesus, he had no idea that Jesus would be his Nathan. He had already committed the sin of treachery, Matthew tells us, because he had previously made plans for it with the high priest. In fact, he had even received the money he had contracted for what he was going to do that night, shortly after dinner. During that dinner, Jesus shocks everybody there by letting them know that somebody there is going to betray him. You know, eating together can be a form of bonding, but this meal would be a form of unbonding. The apostles are horrified by Jesus' words. Each of them knows his own weakness. Each of them is aware of how weak he is. And the fact is, with the exception of John, each of them will betray Jesus. When the crunch came the next day, and the soldiers began to nail Jesus to the cross, they were nowhere to be seen. "Is it I, Lord?" they asked that evening, one after another. When Judas follows their example, he knows full well what he has done and what he will do. And yet, for whatever reason, he imitates the other apostles and also asks, "Is it I, Rabbi?" Jesus becomes his Nathan, and no holds barred replies at once, "You said so." Brothers, among the ancient proverbs, the Greeks passed on to us is the one that says, "Know thyself." We are all in need of knowing not only our strengths, but also our weaknesses. We are all capable of betraying our Lord, either by not showing up when we should, by not taking our place at the foot of the cross, or by deliberately betraying Jesus in a positive way, as Judas did. Commission or omission. How well St. personal lament applies to us. I do not understand my own actions, he writes to the Christians of Rome. For I do not do what I want, but I do the very thing I hate. He knows that even though he is preaching the good news to others, he is quite capable of sinning. Unhappy man that I am, he says, who shall deliver me from the body of this death? How well I remember so many years ago the closing of my very first retreat as a Capuchin. The friar from St. Mary's province who presented the reflections during my year of novitiate at Annapolis ended it by recalling what St. Paul wrote in his first letter to the Corinthians. Pray for me, he said, lest after preaching to others, I myself should become a castaway. Pray for me, lest after preaching to others, I myself should become a castaway. Dear brothers, that friar knew that he was just as capable of betraying the Lord as Judas. He was blessed with the gift of self-knowledge. May the Lord save you and save me from presuming on our own righteousness and give us a huge, huge helping of the same wisdom. Amen.